Heather from Insufferable Wenches. This candidate session is a little bit different because one of the candidates is usually my other interviewer. So this time it's just me asking all the questions. But with me today is Leila Staton. Leila, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
You're
Um,
so welcome. So tell us about yourself.
well, my name's Layla. I'm running to represent Grundy County, Hardin County, and then the western portion of Blackhawk County. You can go to iowalegis.gov to find your representative, and that's how you can figure out if you live in my district or not.
Perfect. All right, so we're just going to jump into questions right away.
Sounds good.
What inspired you to run?
Pure frustration. I was really upset in the 2024 election when no Democrat was on the ticket for our House representative. And the most impactful decisions are made at the state legislature. They affect you way more than the federal government. Um, and so I decided I'm changing that. So I'm running.
Awesome. Do you have a primary opponent?
Not that I know of.
All right. Not yet.
Not
There's
yet.
still a little time,
There's still some time.
a little bit of time. Um, so what makes you different from other Democratic candidates?
A couple things. One, I am young, so I understand a lot of the struggles of young people, and I understand how both political parties have left our generation in the dust when it comes to gun violence prevention and the cost of living crisis and so many others. So many others. I'm not going to list them all. I also don't take any corporate money, and I vow to not take any greedy lobbyist money when I serve, eventually, if I'm elected.
When?
Uh, when, I guess. Um, and I'm 100% authentic. I don't think it's worth it to sacrifice parts of yourself while running for office. Um, I think if you're willing to sacrifice things that you stand for, you don't stand for anything at all.
Perfect. Yay. Um, so you brought up that you're young. How old are you?
I am 22.
Okay.
Right.
Do you catch a lot of flack for your age?
So the answer to that question kind of varies. It depends on where I'm at. In the district, not really. Um, Even people older than me who I would see as voters in conversation don't give me flack for being younger. Um, if anything, they're excited that someone younger wants to be involved. But online, people think I'm too young, and sometimes in other parts of Iowa, people think I'm too young. So the answer is kind of different.
So what do you say to the you're too young crowd?
Well, feel free to primary me. If you think you can do a better job, feel free to jump in the race. I'm all in favor of a healthy primary. Um, if you're not able to jump into this primary, I live here, I pay taxes, I do the things, I'm a functioning adult, and I'm
Why
here.
not? Why not
Young
you?
young people are leaving the state at a greater rate than the national average, and you're telling young people that they shouldn't be involved in the decisions being made that affect them, but you want them to stay. Make it make sense.
That makes perfect sense to me. What you're saying, not what they're saying. Um, do you have a favorite political TikToker or podcaster or news person, journalist, whatever?
Mhm. I really like the I've Had It podcast. I listen every Tuesday and Thursday. Great content. They're fantastic. I love the way they grill candidates and people who are serving in office. I also really enjoy the Politics Girl. I love her breakdowns. They're fantastic. Those are the two that I predominantly take in. I also listen to a podcast called Head in the Office, but I listen every so often. It's not a consistent listen. Sometimes I tap in.
Gotcha. My favorite thing about the I Had It podcast is that they're unafraid of going after Democrats just as hard as they go after Republicans. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that they do that, and it's not necessarily viewed as purity testing, more so like holding people to a higher standard.
Yeah, the strive for better is something that everyone should have when they're running for office, not like, and this is what other Democrats do, and this is what I should do then. No, I
Right.
disagree with
100%. So you already said you're not going to take corporate PAC money. You're not going to take lobbyist money. So we kind of already covered that. Um, if politics were like college, what would be your major and what would be your minor?
that. This one's kind of difficult for me because I'm interested in so many different things, but I think I would major in healthcare, um, making it more affordable and more accessible. And that includes like keeping doctors in the state. Those are the kind of main goals that I would like to achieve. And then I think I would minor in infrastructure.
Okay. So what are some ways that you are active in your community?
Well, I did co-found an organization that focuses a lot on mutual aid. I don't know how familiar the viewers will be with this organization, but
What's the name of
that
that
is
organization?
Insufferable Wenches of Iowa.
Right.
Breaking
Yeah.
down legislation, all of that jazz. I've also been a volunteer EMT and firefighter in my community. And I'm also active with Planned Parenthood advocacy for women's health. Um, I think those are the kind of top things that take up a majority of my time.
All right. Let's see. Oh, the most important question.
Mm.
Cats or dogs and why?
I'm gonna go with cats and because I have dogs.
You know your three dogs are staring at you right now like, what?
Yes. I love my dogs. I love them. I love cuddling with them, but I love cats. They're so quiet and so chill.
And potty trained well, and
Yeah.
you don't have to stand outside with them at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's freezing and snowing. Yeah. Okay, so what are your top priorities aside from healthcare, water quality, and education?
Hmm. Protecting family farms is something that I'm really passionate about, I think. But that does kind of fall into the water quality category, because it includes holding pesticide companies accountable, regulating agribusiness, making sure they're not screwing over Iowans, just period. I'm really passionate about that. What are some other things that I really, hmm. I would like to tackle the affordability crisis, making it more affordable to live here and more just to live here. It's really difficult for young people to kind of find a good career in Iowa after they graduate, so they leave. And that hurts our economy, which then just furthers the affordability crisis.
Right.
Yeah.
So, with that, and young people leaving, and affordability crisis, and all of the things, we also have a private school voucher program. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I hate that program. And
Valid.
maybe I dislike it more than other candidates running in the state, but the private school voucher program screws over students and families in rural Iowa more than it does in urban areas because we don't have private schools that students graduate from. There is no student that is benefiting from this program. So they don't have opportunity to go to a private school in the district in high school. And then their schools are also underfunded. So we're just cutting opportunity for students who live in rural Iowa And and what? There is no second option for them to homeschool. Families can't do that. They often cannot do that. So the private school voucher program is a scam, and I think it should be phased out in the next 6 years.
So effectively in your district, there is a private school, but it's just K through, like it's not, you cannot graduate from that school. It's like
No,
a
it's a K
elementary,
through
middle
8.
school, K through 8.
Yep.
And so in order for families inside of your district to use that voucher program, they have to travel outside of your house district. Okay. So
Which
that,
in a lot of the areas of the district, it's over an hour drive.
right,
It's just unfeasible. That's not feasible for any family to maintain.
right.
Yeah. Or they could go and pursue homeschooling, but that also is not feasible for all families.
Yeah, so homeschooling brings up, I think, a whole lot of like it's a whole nother ball of wax, essentially, when you think about not only like the level of education, because not everybody was meant to be a teacher. I say this because, girl, I was not meant to be a teacher.
Right.
Um, but additionally from that, you're cutting off a lot of kids from any protective services that they may have in like an abusive situation at home or where they may not have access to food. Um, and I think that that doesn't get talked about nearly enough when we talk about this kind of voucher program or the homeschooling credits that go along with it. Yes. Right. So I think like I'm glad that you touched on homeschooling because I think we've talked to quite a few candidates at this point, and it's not something that comes up very often. It's always public money for public schools, and that, there are a countless amount of moral issues with the school voucher program and the way that it's currently set up. And most candidates feel like it needs to be repealed over time. I agree. I don't think that's something that you could do in a year or in one legislative session or even one term, honestly. But I think that that needs to be the end goal. But it doesn't come up often that homeschooling creates a whole other, set of circumstances for kids. And additionally, that working families, it's not something that is even close to feasible for a household with a single parent or with two working parents, even. Um, so I think that adds, like, definitely adds more interest to that topic that doesn't get talked about very often. Um, So if you could pass legislation, we're shifting gears here. If you could pass legislation, what is going on? If you could pass legislation on a petty grievance, what would it be and why?
I think, well, I use this one often, so I might have to think of a second one. But supporting public transportation, of course, because because it helps with affordability, it helps with the environment, it's accessible, but also to get bad drivers off the road. But what's another one that, hmm, I don't know if I can think of a second one.
It's a lot harder to like think of a petty grievance
But
on the
yeah,
fly than you'd think it is. Yeah,
yeah,
we can circle back too if we need to.
we're gonna circle back to that.
All right, cool. So I'm sure being the age that you are at and running for house at such a young age is leads to people criticizing, I say that with intent, or asking you about what your valid experience is.
Hmm.
So to you, what is valid experience to run for office?
Right. I don't necessarily think of like qualifications as an experience because currently our state legislature has screwed us all over and they have mountains of experience. I don't think the experience is equating to anything positive in the way that asking that question kind of infers that it does. But I would say that like a set of skills are important. I think listening and being able to really hear people when they're talking is a huge skill you need while running for office. Um, Being a functioning member in your community, someone who's involved, and knows what it's like to be in your community. Um, and obviously being sentient, I guess. I think if you are,
You just have to be breathing.
you just have to kind of be breathing, but also just want better. No one knows everything. Even the oldest people of the legislature do not know everything, even if they think they do. They don't. And I think recognizing that you will never know everything is kind of the biggest step you can take while getting ready to run for office. It is humbling. Running for office is humbling, and you learn a ton. And the only way you can really get better as a candidate or get further in your campaign is to recognize what you've done wrong, to go back and correct it. And I think that that is the main skill that you need while running for office.
Yeah, I think that's a great description. I think some people when they talk about experience, they're talking about like your resume qualifications, right?
Mhm.
Um, there was one candidate that we did an interview who was like highly suggest going down to Des Moines and um, being there while they're in session and seeing how it works and doing the things. And I think that's great. I think that everybody should do that. Not just candidates, but everybody, anybody who's interested in politics at all. I think it's really easy to criticize the things that happen at the Capitol, right? With all of the shitty legislation that came out last year. It's really easy to criticize those things, and it's really easy to look at the minority party, especially in that situation, and be like, where the hell were you? Why weren't you doing your job? And people say that all the time, but genuinely they did everything they could do.
Right.
In a lot of those situations. And I think it's important for people to see how that process works and to know how a bill is passed
Yeah.
in order to know where the critique should go, essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and I
think,
also think that there is no resume qualification that qualifies you to run for office. Either
no,
you're politically active and you're aware of politics and you know how it works, or you don't. And if you don't, you can learn and you can learn quickly.
yeah.
Um, I think being an Iowan and wanting better for Iowans is the qualification,
I
essentially,
would agree with that. I
and a
think,
willingness to learn.
yeah, I'm often criticized because I don't have a political science degree.
Okay.
Dog. I don't.
So, can we, well, let's just take a moment and talk about this. First and foremost, you can get your political science degree. I highly suggest it. I think it could be very, very good knowledge to have.
Yeah.
I also think it's a pretty small scope of what you can do with a political science degree other than running for office. But
It's the new communications degree.
let's talk specifically about the Iowa House. Let's talk about that because college is expensive.
Mhm.
And political science degrees come from college. So most people, and I say this pretty confidently, most people are not going to college to run for the Iowa House, being that it pays, how much does the Iowa House pay?
I think it's like
Like
25,000.
25 grand a year. Now, granted, it is part-time session,
Mhm.
right? But when you're out of session, you're still a representative. You're only in session 4 months out of the year, but the rest of the year you have to be out talking to your constituents and finding out what's going on in your district and communicating with those people, and that's in addition to campaigning and doing all of those things. So essentially, I'm not going to call it a full-time job because I actually don't believe that it's a full-time job. I think it's a part-time job, but I do think it's a 12-month long part-time job, right? Where 4 months of the year you are full-time and then the rest of the year you're kind of part-time. So clearly getting elected to the Iowa House is not going to pay those student loans.
Right.
So maybe I think we should probably stop purity testing our candidates with the, do you have a degree in political science? Well, no, duh. Like,
Oh,
and if you do and you're running for office, fantastic. That's great for you. I'm pretty sure that when you went to school for political science, you didn't do it with the purpose of becoming an Iowa House rep.
right.
Because if
Um,
you did, how are you paying your bills?
right.
Good
I
Lord.
think, yeah, I think that opens up a whole different conversation, though, is
Hmm.
how I think one of the biggest reasons we haven't historically had great candidates run in every race is because of the low pay,
Yeah,
because it's so high risk and so low reward
yeah,
that it's a lot more work than what pays off. And I 100% believe that running for office and serving in public office is meant to be a sacrifice. 100% agree.
hmm,
However, there is a line, and I think, let's just face it, working class people are not about to take a put in 6 months to a year and a half of unpaid labor to get elected to a job that pays $25,000 a year. And then
100%.
and then let's say they get elected. They make the $25,000 a year. They have to campaign to get reelected. It's a lot more work than pay, and I think that is one of the biggest reasons we don't have good candidates in every single race.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, in like the bare sense, it costs more to run than you're going to make.
Yep.
It costs you more money to run. It costs you more time to run. It costs more to run for a position like this than you're going to make, essentially. Nobody runs for the Iowa House to get rich, guys. I don't know if that has ever been something that like was in question in
Right.
Iowa, right?
I mean,
Um,
unless you're like some gluttonous pig serving and
you
you're
take
getting
every lobbyist dollar that's
every
offered to you,
lobbyist dollar for your campaign and then taking backdoor deals.
right? Which is super gross and
Yeah, which I
illegal.
am not doing and will not do.
Thank God.
But I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that kind of just leaves a recipe for either people who have really good paying jobs to run for office, very high paying jobs that are also extremely flexible to
Hmm.
allow you to run for office, or your workplace puts you up to run for office to keep an eye out to make sure they're not coming after your workplace, which is more often than you'd think,
Hmm.
or retirees, which thank you for your service, but also you have no idea what it's like to try to build a life here anymore.
Right.
Or 78% of our state legislature are business owners. I think that that is a recipe for disaster.
I think there's more to that, even though 78% of our legislature is owners for a 4 month session that happens a very specific time of year, and they're in a very specific field of business.
Right.
Right.
And then
So,
we wonder why we don't grow any local produce, or
right.
that's a whole nother ballpark.
It really is. Okay, so we're going to go to the next question
Yeah.
because like many of these, we could just be on
Yeah,
here
for
for
hours.
hours. I lost my spot though. Big shock. Okay, so what keeps you going?
What keeps me going? I think one, my siblings. I think I grew up with a pretty good opportunity with public education, and that is no mas for them. And that makes me really sad. And I want them to be able to thrive. And predominantly just members of my community. I really care about our livelihood just collectively. But also, I think another thing that really keeps me going is just like the fact that we can do better. That this isn't just like the end all be all. I don't know. I say it often, I say it all the time, is that we're only as cooked as you believe that we're cooked. I promise you, there have been worse times in US history, and we have overcome it. We will overcome this, but it's what comes after that really matters. And if you want the after to be much better than it is now, get involved in it. Because we're the ones that have the control on how everything will turn out. And that gives me hope.
Yeah, I I think that's one thing like within all of this. There's no, joy is resistance. We've spewed that a bajillion times. It's really easy to be like, you know what? We're screwed. There's no fixing any of this. Burn it all to the ground and start over. Um, and I think that that is not only kind of nihilistic and like doomsy, right? But also lazy.
Mhm.
It's lazy.
It's
Um,
privilege.
it is privilege, and I think like it's really important to recognize that that it's a privilege to be like, you know what? Nah, like I'm not gonna do anything because nothing I do changes anything anyways.
Yeah.
Um, that is privilege.
What got
So
African Americans out of slavery? Hope. That
yeah,
is like literally the only thing.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
hard work and hope.
Yeah, you can't fix anything. You can't go forward. You can't without hope. There's literally nothing left. So you
There's
have to be
nothing to look
hopeful.
forward to.
Yeah. Um, so what is your hottest take?
I think this is going to go with my last answer, but that we're not as cooked as people try to make it feel like we are. That our level of cookedness or our level of being screwed over is only as much as you make it. Because
Yeah.
it's you have to acknowledge that we have some sort of control here, and we do.
Yeah.
I think that is one of my hottest takes.
I think
I don't know why, but
I think it's a genuinely hot take because and it's a hot take that I agree with, not surprising. But I think it is a hot take because in what we're doing with insufferable wenches, right? We spend a lot of time watching candidates, listening to them talk, um, on not just a state level, but even on the national level. And there is a constant kind of overall feeling that there's so much damage. There's so much damage, and some of this damage, we may never be able to come back from, and things like that. And I think while that's probably true in some areas, right? Like there is insurmountable damage. However, I don't think that there's anything you can't come back from. And I think that it's really defeatist to be like, oh, it's just there's so much damage and we have so much work to do. Girl, we know. Like we all know. We know there's damage, but there's also hope in that, with getting people who genuinely give a crap elected,
Mhm.
that we can, roll back some of that damage. And is it going to leave scars? Of course. But I think it is a really hot take because I don't think I've ever heard a candidate thus far be like, you know what? All of this is bad. It's all terrible, but we're going to be okay. I think
Yeah.
they're almost leaning into the doom and gloom a little bit.
And of course, like, I don't know. I don't want that answer to give off this impression of like people won't get hurt. People are getting hurt.
Yeah.
It's also important to acknowledge that throughout forever, people have always been exploited.
Yeah.
Like people have been hurt before, and that sucks. That's gross, and I hate that. With that, it has happened forever.
Hmm.
We have
Yeah.
to we have to recognize that as the reality right now, and that in the future, that doesn't have to be the reality. We can work to make sure that everything that's broken down is built back up, but built back better. And that is what I think the main goal should be. Because a lot of the sanctions of our government are not the greatest. They don't operate well. They aren't they're counterproductive often, and are sometimes a waste of tax dollar.
Yeah.
And those are things that need to be either broken down and rebuilt, reformed. I think there's a place for all of it. Um, but I will say that I think the sooner that people who want better get involved to work for better, the better we will get sooner.
Right. Not a spectator sport and all that.
It's not a spectator sport.
It definitely isn't. And it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so what's your wokest take?
I have two options.
Okay.
Number one, everyone should have an opportunity to be lazy. Being lazy doesn't make you a bad person. Being lazy does not mean that you don't deserve housing, food, healthcare. I You're lazy. Okay, I don't want to work with you.
Right.
I still believe that you should be able to survive. Um, my second is that I hope at some point in my life we have a system in place where every person in the United States has access to affordable housing, everyone is fed, and everyone has healthcare.
Valid.
And that billionaires should never exist.
That what should never exist?
Billionaires.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty woke. Um, I, yeah, I think it's super gross that we consider human beings being fed, housed, and healthy is a woke take. That's absolutely disgusting
Those
in
are
my
things
eyes.
that are recognized as human rights in other areas. I think that it's disgusting that it has to be woke in the US, but
Yeah,
being here using
the
the
richest
US as
country in the
a
world.
political skew, that is apparently woke.
Right. Yes. I agree. That is correct. It is definitely seen as being woke, which, by the way, like at this point, like I've leaned in.
Yeah, I'm awake.
Like
You
I've
want me to be
leaned
asleep?
right? I've
I saw
leaned
how
into
y'all talked
being
about Joe
woke.
Biden.
Oh my
Literally.
gosh.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna go off on a tangent on my first one.
Oh Lord.
I think there's this idea from the right, I'd assume, that like socialism like breeds laziness and blah blah blah. And I would argue that capitalism breeds laziness.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not one to be like the real enemy is capitalism because I know that there are other enemies out there. And I understand that it will be difficult to get away from the capitalistic society that we live in. But people have painted socialism so like evilly and say that it breeds socialism or breeds laziness, which the laziness already exists. I believe that that amount of laziness is already existing in the US. Billionaires don't work. The people who own the companies do not operate the companies. They are lazy. They're getting a government handout. More, they're getting more of a handout than you, and they pay less in taxes than the person that works at McDonald's. Be so for real. Those are the laziest pieces of shit that exist in our government. Hands down.
OG
They're
welfare queens. Ugh.
literally
Yeah.
like they pay like a single mother as a welfare queen when she's working two jobs, sending her kids to school, struggling to figure out where to put her kids when she's at work.
And God forbid that woman have an iPhone.
And God forbid that woman have her nails done from
Right.
Walmart, have an iPhone, but she's on SNAP benefits.
Right.
Okay? It sounds like she's deserving of the SNAP benefits,
Right.
Kyle.
Right.
Like, meanwhile, these people who own and op or don't even operate the company, they just own the company and then like trade stocks to get rich, exploiting people who are actually doing the work,
Paying their workers 7.25 an hour.
paying their workers 7.25 an hour and lobbying the government for less protections for those employees, getting rich off of their work, and then also taking huge handouts from the government. And then they are the ones telling you that you wanting more tax relief for a working family is lazy and that you're a welfare queen. No.
Listen, I think that you're absolutely right on this. Um, and I say that from a personal, like a personal perspective, right? As someone who is a single mom and has worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table and keep a roof over our heads and do all of the things, I would have so much more time and energy and drive to do better things, to do greater things if I were in a more comfortable position. If I had been in a more comfortable position financially, had been, am now, all of it, right? Because there's not, I mean, how many Iowans right now are there that aren't struggling in some way? And I think that that's like, socialist programs, right? Socialist programs, um, being used as like, well, that's for the lazy people. I'm not lazy. I've worked two jobs for the last, I, what, 12 years. Um, I have put myself through school. I have raised four kids. I've kept a roof over those kids' heads. I've kept them fed. All of my time and energy has been put into survival,
Yeah.
just to survive, right? And I feel like if people had their basic necessities, right? Like basic necessities, like, you know, a safe place to live, health care, being able to go to the doctor when you actually need to, because I go like every other year if I have to. All of those things, if I did not have to worry about those basic needs, right? Or paying for my kids' medication or whatever that may be, I would have had a lot more time to dedicate to, you know, many things. Going back to college, to finish a degree, I could have been, lots of people could have been a lot more than what they are. And I'm not saying that what I am now is not enough. That's not the point of this conversation, right? But how much time could I have dedicated, or another single mom or a single dad or whatever, even a married couple with two freaking kids and a white picket fence? How much more could they have done with their lives if they didn't have to struggle constantly just to pay the mortgage or just to take their kid to the doctor? So I think that's super valid.
Right. I think you can look at other places in the world, and I'm not saying that any other country is like the tell all be all for what the US could be, but I think you
Right.
can look at specific data sets from other places to recognize that people who work a 4-day work week or a 3-day work week and get by, they're in better health, like their lives are ultimately better. Like, could you imagine how healthy people would be if they weren't consistently stressed?
Right.
Like, the number one cause for suicide in the United States is debt.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like,
I think that's unsurprising to anyone who's really truly struggled
mhm.
financially, especially, when you get to a place where you have other people depending on you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, um, yeah, that conversation could go clearly on forever.
Yeah.
What is something you've learned about yourself while campaigning?
Well, I guess before campaigning, I thought I was really shy and that I was not much of a public speaker and that I was kind of like an introverted hermit, which granted, I am a little bit of an introverted hermit. Um, but I'm more of a people person than I thought I was. I've also learned that I have second guessed myself way too much. And learning to get over that, getting over kind of like the fear of being wrong and being ready to be wrong. I like to be wrong sometimes. I like to be corrected. I like to learn more. Um, and just like butting into conversation is a lot easier than I thought it was. I was someone who kind of worked themselves up before saying hi to somebody out of anxiety. And it's really not that bad. It's easy. And like you're a lot less weird than you think you are doing that. So
Yeah,
those are some,
I think that's a really cool thing to overcome while
yeah.
doing this lane of work and being in kind of political spaces and stuff. And
And it's
definitely
empowering
it
because
is
like
really
obviously
empowering.
like being a woman in politics is already you're already kind of over, all like automatically underestimated and you're
Mhm.
also kind of shoved out still in 2020 2026.
And
Um,
patted on the head and treated
pat it
like
on the head. Um,
children.
but just kind of like ing it
Yep.
makes it easier and just kind of not that it's easy to ignore, but working past it or working parallel to it is what needs to be done often.
Right.
Pioneering.
Yep. All right. So rapid fire.
Okay.
Are we pro-choice?
Yes.
How do we feel about trans rights?
Or human rights.
Right? Okay. Um, yeah, real rapid fire there. Those whole two questions. I think those like they get called um politics pretty
Or
often.
culture war.
Culture war. The term culture war pisses me off to my core every time. I don't think women losing their bodily autonomy should be chalked up to a culture war. I don't think that trans people losing their civil rights should be chalked up to a culture war. That's not a culture war. It affects a whole lot of people in this state that matter, and calling it a culture war just kind of demeans it and waters it down to not mattering. And
Right.
that pisses me off to no end. So while it's not super rapid fire and it's not exactly groundbreaking to believe that trans individuals deserve to have civil rights and that women should be able to choose what to do with their bodies, somehow it's become like,
An even hotter issue than it was in 2015.
absolutely,
Yeah.
which is gross. Anyways,
Yeah.
okay, so why should your constituents vote for you?
Because I care about them. I know that our current representative doesn't. We can tell by the voting record. We can tell by how often that person has events in public to talk to their constituents. We can tell by their lack of responding to emails and lack of answering the phone in session that he does not care about our community. I care about our community. I want better for our community. I know I'm not perfect, but I care a
Yeah,
lot.
it's
And he
very
supports the private school voucher program, and it doesn't even benefit anybody in our district.
valid. Valid mini crash out at the end, I swear. Um, Perfect. So, where can your where can people find you?
You can find me on leilaforoiowa.com. Leilafor, Iowa.com is my website. You can sign up to volunteer and I think there's a link on there if you want to donate to my campaign. I am a necessity of people donors because that is all the donors I have. Um, and then you can find me on Leila for Iowa, spelled the same exact way, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you're not on social media and want to get a hold of me, my email is leilaforoiowa@gmail.com, spelled the same exact way.
Fabulous. So LeilaForIowa.com, Leila for Iowa on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And the email is leilaforoiowa@gmail.com. Um, so lastly, I want to know what your big ask is. What is the one thing you need from everybody the most right now?
Mm. So I have two answers for this. If you do not live here, um, and you want to know how to get involved to make your community better, get in it. Start attending community events, talk to your neighbor. If you don't know your neighbor's name, you should know your neighbor's name. You should go
Go to
talk
the
to your neighbor
boring meetings.
and go to the boring meetings. That is where decisions are made. Go to county Democrat meetings. That is how you change the party. Um, Go to all of the boring meetings. City council meetings, if you have an AI data center that you are against the implementation of, go to the county and city meetings and make your voice heard. Because the 95-year-olds that are often there do not understand, nor will they live through the consequences of the data centers. You will. Go make the decision. Um, Alongside this, I do need donations. Donation fundraising is the worst part of any campaign, and it's also the worst part of a people-powered campaign. Um, we're living in an affordability crisis. I understand it. So any amount helps, really. I think $5 covers 3 to 7 rat cards, depending on how many I order. Um, and I would really like to continue to be able to order from unions, and donations from people make that possible. And then if you want to volunteer on my campaign, because cool people do that, sign up to volunteer. It consists of like door knocking and phone banking and postcard writing, and then sometimes attending events to collect signatures and give out literature. Easy, simple stuff.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for sitting down with Insufferable Wenches, Leila Staton for Iowa House.
Anytime. This is very unique for me.
Eh.
Um,
It's definitely an interesting situation to sit down and interview the person that you usually interview people with. And I use
yes.
the term interview loosely,
Yeah.
very loosely.
Oh, we have to come back to my petty
Oh,
legislation.
yes, your petty grievance. We'll end on that.
Okay,
Let's
so
do it.
my last petty grievance for legislation is I support universal childcare and universal pre-K for all of the obvious reasons. Um, working parents benefit the economy, like it's moms. Moms benefit the economy by working. Um, they should not be stuck at home if they don't want to be, of course, for all of the obvious reasons. However, I love kids, but I enjoy going to the bookstore without kids screaming in my ear. And I think that if there was available childcare for everyone, kids would probably throw less fits if they didn't have to go to the store with mom and dad, or mom and mom, or whatever. If parents could just not bring them everywhere.
So,
Not saying that kids are not allowed in public spaces, because I know that that is important, but I think that it would be more easygoing if there was more preparedness for them to be in the public spaces, more of like a developmental thing rather than a necessity. Does that make sense?
yeah, well, to me, yes, because I have four kids. I think that yes, for all of those reasons, all of those reasons. Also, I'm going to add to that, and it's not even the petty aspect, but to add to like the non-petty part of it is that moms specifically, and I say it whatever, I'm not going to apologize for that. Moms, because the majority of the time, the person who has to take the kid to the grocery store with them, or to the
Mhm.
bookstore, or to the whatever, is it's often, more often than not, it is the mom, right? Yes, single dads, I see you too. Just go with me on this. Um, Parents, let's just say parents, right? Parents deserve a little bit of peace to
Yeah.
themselves, right?
Yes.
Like, at what point did it become this thing where, like, if you're not a real parent, if you're not tortured and you don't have alone time, Girl, what? Stop it.
What?
I just want to go to the stinking grocery store and buy the food, and I want it to take 30 minutes, not, 90, because and I feel like that's a universal thought process for any parent under the sun. So, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and like,
Yeah.
of course, obviously, all parents are impacted by that, but it is predominantly moms doing all of the silent labor at home.
Yes.
Uh, and then on top of that, if because childcare is just as much as a mortgage, like
It's
in today's,
insane. Yeah.
um, the parent that ends up staying home and not going back to work is the mom, predominantly.
Right.
It's not fair to moms. Justice for moms.
Justice for moms. For moms everywhere. Dang. Where's Kaylin Dre? She should have been on this call.
And yeah, we should have her on.
Shout out, Caitlin. Yeah, yeah, we should. We haven't done Senate yet, but we'll get there. Well, I think that's it. We've ranted now. I'm sure someone will find something to yell at us about in this. It's
Yeah.
fine. It'll be the moms thing. It'll be because I said moms. It's all
It's
right.
probably just going to be my entire take in general. I'm not annoyed by children in the stores. I just want to be clear about that. I'm not annoyed by children in the stores. I'm annoyed on behalf of the parents because they have this huge responsibility. And I think that our government can.
S- Step up because you want more babies born. You want us to pop out all these
And
kids.
another thing,
And
you
another
want
thing.
less abortions, and you're so against policy that would help people become parents who want to be parents, who
Right.
aren't parents right now because the government is just like fucking over anybody who wants to be a mom or a dad or a parent in general.
True.
Like,
Dang it. Are we gonna have to are we gonna have to cut out this whole ending scene?
I have no idea. And another thing,
And
and another
another
thing,
thing.
and another thing.
Gosh, yes. So we have not quite hit an hour, which most of ours run roughly 40 minutes, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. So this is about on par for us. It just a little more ranty than normal, but I feel like being that it's us, that tracks
It will be.
pretty much. All right. Thank you for coming to this candidate session, Leila. Check her out on all the socials and the things.
They're
And
probably sick
we
of seeing my face.
say what?
So they're probably sick of seeing my face.
They're sick of seeing both of our faces. It's fine.
It's pretty insufferable.
Hmm.
Broke the fourth wall there.
You did. Oh God. Vecna has entered the chat. Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you for stopping by, Layla for Iowa. We will see you next time when we do these
Okay.
interviews with somebody else.
If you got through this and you are not either in an uproar, thank you.
Yes. Have a good night.
Gonna make you wonder why you even